Peace, love, and Reiki. Welcome to Global Reiki Webinars. We're so happy that you're here to celebrate another new year with the Global Reiki community. I'm Rachel Goldberg. I'm a Reiki master living in Evanston, Illinois, right outside Chicago. And beside me is Phyllis Furumoto, who is the Grandmaster and lineage bearer of Usui Shiki Ryoho, one of the primary lineages of Reiki outside of Japan. And we're so happy that you're here with us. If you are on live, feel free to type into the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from. I see we have Oksana in Israel and Philippe from Salmo, British Columbia, Monica from Germany, Charlotta in the Netherlands, Tatiana in Croatia, Melanie also in Croatia, and also Branko in Croatia. Our Croatian contingency is with us today. Hi, Carol in Canada. Hi, Ina in Israel. Hi, Jane in the UK. Hi, Poke in Orcas Island. Welcome, Anu in Mumbai, India. Anne in Texas, Kathleen in Oregon. Happy New Year, everyone. We are so happy to be with you. If you're joining us for the first time, Global Reiki Webinars is a free public program that Phyllis and I have been doing for, wow, this might be our fourth New Year, either third or fourth. It was 2015 when we did the first New Year. So 16, 17, 18, 19. This is our fourth one. And these programs are free for the Global Reiki community. Phyllis has spent decades traveling the world, working with Reiki practitioners, leading programs, and supporting people to deepen their practice with Reiki. And in 2015 was really felt a calling to bring what she does online to reach a broader audience and also reduce the amount of time she was traveling around and having all of the things that go along with that. And so here we are. And today we're going to be talking about what we've done previously in this New Year's program is talk about of Reiki. And today, the way Phyllis has phrased it is looking forward while being present. And she's going to have much more to say about that in just a moment. A couple things I want to let you know about is that this is a program that we do for free. It's a way to connect our greater global community. As you can see, we've got more people joining us live. Hi, Anne in England. Hi, Catherine in New Mexico. Shirley in the UK. So happy to be here with all of you. And there are two things that we have going on all the time. One is that there is a place on Facebook to connect with people directly, if you consider Facebook Connections direct. And that is our Facebook group called Global Reiki Webinars. So if you just search on Facebook, Global Reiki Webinars, you'll find our group and you can request to join, answer a couple questions, and an administrator will approve you to join the group and engage. So if you are moved by anything that you hear here, you're welcome to respond or comment or ask further questions. We also have many, many past programs that are all available on YouTube. If you just search on Google or YouTube or go to the Facebook group, there's a whole list of past programs that you can find. And we also ongoing have a PayPal account where members of this community, we invite you to make a monetary gift if you are enjoying these and want to support us in this work and help us to continue doing them and feel that flow of energy in a tangible way. So I'm going to post that link up for those of us who are here live in a moment after we do our opening Reiki. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the link is in the description below. And at the end of this program, Phyllis and I are going to share a little bit about some opportunities to learn and be with us in the coming year that are a little different than things that we've done before. One is an online course that is starting at the end of January with Peter, Yakuten-san, and Phyllis, and she's going to have a lot more to say about what that program is. It's going to be a multi-session course. And we also have our Global Reiki in-person gathering that is happening this coming June of 2019 for the first time ever in Europe, in the UK. And we'll have a little bit more to share about that at the end of the webinar. So stay tuned. And without further ado, I will mute myself and turn it over to Phyllis.
Hello, everyone. We don't know whether it's appropriate to call England part of the Europe, but as Americans, we're going to go with what we're used to until told otherwise. So trying to keep updated if the political scene these days is, well, treacherous, we might say. Okay, so I hope, Heather, you're smiling, and all of those who are from the UK. I'd like to ask us all if we could join each other by doing some self-treatment, and if it's if this treatment process is in your system. If not, then sit in Reiki and be with us for a few minutes. Thank you. Thank you. And what I got was, no matter where we are on the planet, we can connect and we can be one. And we don't need to know what political label we all have, because that's just another one of our human things that we've done. And we're going to talk about another one, something that we've maybe invented. I don't know. So, okay, instead of being very mysterious, I thought about my usual year-end programs, and I started these when I did the radio programs, if any of you remember those. Radio broadcasts, and at the end of every year I would do a radio broadcast about the future or resolutions or what the future will bring to Reiki or what we will bring to Reiki and so on. And what I've realized this year in doing more studying and doing more thoughtful processing around my own death is that we are part of a circle that never ends. And the word never has never, has not ever struck me so poignantly as it did this year. That means like forever. And I was always told in English that if you write something, you can't write never or forever, because that's just not a concept that we as readers can take in. And so I thought, well, okay, maybe that's a belief system I need to get rid of. So this is my take on the whole thing. We, all of us human beings, are a part of a circle of life. As we grow and develop as human beings, there are stages that we reach for, we live through, and then discard, like a past life. To let go of that life is an important step in being a part of the cycle of life. Without the compost, the debris, the fallen and dead plant and animal material, we would not have nourishment for the next step of our life. And I think about all my life, like life before Reiki, right? That was like one part of my life. And I have another part before that, which is life before downhill skiing, because downhill skiing was the first great transformation in my life. I went from not being able to move physically very gracefully. I loved to dance, but I didn't dance very well, and I've always wanted to take lessons but never have. And when I got into downhill skiing, within a year or two, I was a pretty good skier because I just gave up everything and went skiing. And I could move gracefully and with power. Like I could actually feel the muscles in my legs move and do something that they were supposed to do, and be able to carve turns, go down moguls, have fun, and yeah, be fit. So it was an amazing time. And then I got into Reiki, and that was a whole nother transformation. And when I got into Reiki, I had one dream as a skier, which is not very politically correct. But, you know, I just wanted to have the best ski days, a great lift pass, you know, drugs to keep me happy on the ski hill. And when I got into Reiki, that whole priority just left. And then what I wanted to do was, you know, be able to teach the classes that were being asked of me, to be able to do the best I could in the footsteps of my master, and to be able to surrender myself into Reiki, because that's what Hawaii Takata demanded of her masters. So it was an interesting thing where my ski life and my ski life priorities just dropped away. But I realize now that many of the things that have dropped away, it would be nice to be able to do that with consciousness, so that I am not sort of mindlessly just giving things up and not seeing what comes out of the compost of that. Excuse me. So I have a question for you. When you have cut flowers in a bouquet, do you throw these away when they start to become not fresh, or do you leave them until they are dried and have presented you with a full expression of their dying, a beauty of its own? And then do you throw them away as though they are nasty or rubbish, rather than giving them back to the earth in some way so that they can fulfill their natural cycle of becoming earth again? So this image is really interesting, because I often have cut flowers. And I just leave them. And when they start not to become fresh, I just leave them and the water goes away and then they get dried and they become a whole nother kind of beauty. And I just love them. And then one time I just realized that our whole house was full of dying or dead flowers. And I thought, well, other people might not appreciate them, but I really love seeing this whole process. And then, of course, I put them into the compost or put them out in our yard somewhere. So I would like to be able to take a moment with you and sit in Reiki and just go through our last few weeks from October, November, December. And in this time period, what in your life has quietly died? And how have you noted this death in your life? So let's just take a moment and maybe put your hands over your on your chest, keeping in touch with the rest of us in the circle. And just go back through the last weeks of such a full life. Has there been a friendship that has ended? Have you moved house and let one house go for another? Has something happened in your Reiki practice where you have to let go of one way of doing things and embrace another? Are there physical challenges like medications or operations that have changed the way you are in your body? Has somebody close to you passed on, we might say? And can you put these deaths, as we might call them, into the compost of our own personality, of our being human right now? What will grow from this? What will this sustain and nurture? What new thing will be created in this next year? Thank you for joining me. I wanted to also bring this point up because when I researched the question, what is death? For most of us, this is a problematic question, whether we like it or not, because death is a condition which is distinguished from life as a condition. And when does life really end? As the plant material decomposes and then becomes soil, ready to nourish and grow other forms of life, it's still moving, it's still changing form, and it's still giving life. And so if we take away the religious and moral connotations of life and death, is there really death? In nature, do we remain living into all the various stages of the circle of life? This question for me is one that I'm taking with me into this next year because I find it fascinating that when I, as a student of Reiki, began, I thought we were sort of like healers in the sense that everything would be new and fresh and newborn, so to speak. And what's really true is that in my years of Reiki, what Reiki does is it gives all the stages of life beauty. And we as students can see that beauty. And that for me transforms this whole process of the moment of death, if there is such a thing. So this is my little, this is my question for the year. And we will now go to questions that came from people in the who signed in and asked questions beforehand. And I want to just say, Philippe Bonjour, if you're on the program, which you usually are, that I didn't answer your questions. You've just heard my own opinion about death and what that might mean and so on. But the other questions, I think, are not appropriate to answer here. And I'd like to do that in the Facebook page. So I'll do that. Oh, great. All right, Rachel. We're ready for... Yeah, go ahead.
Before going into reading the questions, I'd like to share for anyone who is viewing this in a way that they don't see the live chat, Emily just shared some really beautiful reflections. She said, "Love this. Back in 2017, I had my right leg amputated for health reasons. I went through a heavy grieving process and identifying as a Reiki practitioner with a missing limb. I am grateful that I have been able to reconnect with Reiki and move forward with my practice and look forward to how it will evolve next year." Thank you, Emily, so much for sharing. And now I'll go into our questions. The
Great.
first question came from Sophia, and Sophia wrote, "Is it possible that sending Reiki to others may cause waste of the vital energy? I feel this even if I send to me and other also."
This is a question that I feel in, when I read it at first, Sophia, I thought, well, that's interesting. How could she feel this? And I would still love to know this, the answer to this question. So if you're online right now and could put it into the chat, that would be great. When I just let go of all the theories and everything, my experience of Reiki or vital energy is that it's endless and that it's everywhere, and it's so limitless. There's no limit to it, and part of the process of us being human is that we can only conceive of what we can conceive of. So limitlessness we might not be feeling the Reiki limit, we might be feeling our own limit. And for me, there is no waste because in the universe, because everything lives and dies, does the cycle of life. And so there's no waste for any of this, any of the vital energy, for me, anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Denise. And Denise wrote, is the pull or curiosity in Reiki or healing arts one that remains etched in one's soul to be retrieved in another lifetime? Or does it exist simultaneously in a parallel lifetime?
If I think, well, this is my understanding of your question, Denise. It's like when I first started to teach Reiki, I would meet people from many different walks of life, and without Reiki, I wouldn't have connected with them ever, I think. And so it gave me this question, are we coming together because Reiki we've had Reiki before in another lifetime, and now we're coming back together again? Is this what you're talking about? And if so, it's a question that I have, and one that I think is pretty sure to be a yes. Does it exist simultaneously in a parallel lifetime? Well, maybe, but I don't know if parallel lifetimes exist, and if they do, how does that work? So I'm just thinking about, oftentimes people think that there is sort of this lifetime, which is the one that we're sort of awake for. And then there's our dream time when we go to bed and sleep. That's our parallel lifetime. That's a lifetime that we're living simultaneously. And when I came back from Japan last year and slept for 3 months or something, that's exactly what I experienced, was that when I was sleeping, I was running a parallel lifetime of the one that I was in, but one of them I was sleeping all the time, and the other one I was really living all the time. So were they simultaneous? I don't know. So this is a great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis, may I add a little to this one?
Sure.
So I think there's a lot in this question just about, so being in this lifetime, and even that statement assumes that there are lifetimes beyond this one. I have to keep reminding myself that I don't actually know anything except what's here and now. And then at the same time, there's what I believe. And I do believe in reincarnation. And I also believe in infinity. So the infinite nature of time and space. And with that, my spirit or soul has been and will be again every single thing that we experienced in life. And it's through Reiki and through practicing of the second degree and sending distance Reiki that has really helped me cultivate this understanding of infinite connection and being able to tune into all of these things everywhere in the universe and infinity. And I sort of think like back to the question of, are we connected to healing and this kind of practice in other lifetimes? I sort of think there's this image that's been very popular in New Age circles of, it's sort of like all of these concentric circles, and people call it the tree of life. It's a sacred image. And to me, it's sort of like, that's how I imagine the universe, only infinitely expanding. And if one life, my lifetime or any individual lifetime, is just an intersection point in that infinite web. And then when we talk about like recent lifetimes or future lifetimes where maybe I was doing the same thing, it's sort of like whatever those closer intersection points are might be what we're referring to. And so that's sort of helpful for me. And then also I remember that I don't actually know anything. And so it's very fun. And thank you for your question. And thank you everyone for listening to my thoughts on it. So our next question is from Raya, and Raya wrote, I think often of the circle of life. If it is the case that every soul has multiple lives and the number of souls has already been determined, can we never say, for example, a refugee problem, that our country is too full? Souls may come to earth when may a soul come to earth when he is ready. The number of souls does not change. Is this circle growing?
Rhea, I have a feeling that that there are a couple of concepts that you're trying to put together, and it makes it really complicated. And I understand where your questions come from. I'd love to answer this, not particularly from what has death brought you today, but the circle of life. So the circle of life for me is something that each individual organism goes through. And each individual organism has their own process, including multiple lives and so on. The number of people that have manifested on the earth, let's just say that I feel we are being tested. And that what's true is, on the planet, we can feed everybody on the planet. But everybody has to be willing to have everybody be fed. And that's not true. Corporations have created a culture in which there has to be people that suffer, and has to be people that suffer but in a different way. And when we look at our countries, some of which are run by corporations, one of the things that really touched me was in Europe right now was that the German chancellor in the beginning said, you know, there's no way that we're going to turn away refugees. And Germany has, since World War II, has in some way completed a gestalt around their part of World War II and their understanding of human supremacy and slavery. And that started to transform their culture. I don't know if it's obvious that it isn't deep in the, it's not established in the German culture system right now, but she had the courage to at least say that. And so there's no country that's too full. And, you know, human beings have migrated, and we call them refugees now. But, you know, human beings have migrated since the beginning of time for lots of different reasons, for weather issues, for drought, for, you know, all these other natural processes that happen. And it is the wish of the countries that say they're too full, it is their wish to maintain their own standard of living. And not share that standard of living with other people. And, you know, that's really sad. It's a humanistic problem for me, rather than the number of souls. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis, for your thoughts. That's similar to my thoughts on it too, that something I notice in Reiki, and again, it's just my own imagining and the language I use to describe what I think I'm experiencing, but I notice treating myself, there are times when I'll feel a pull to leave my hands in a certain area. And I've come to sort of think about that sometimes energy as it's flowing through my being might be tight or contracted, and that the Reiki helps it to flow in a more expansive way. And I like to think that on an emotional level, when that energy is contracted, that indicates fear or fear-based emotion. And when I can really feel like I have an open, expansive state of flow, that is love or love-based emotion. And when I think about this this challenge that humanity is facing, it's like, can we get to that expansive state and really allow the abundance of resources that are here for us to flow in a way that it reaches everyone? Or will those who have much remain in a contracted, fear-based state? You know, the fear that if I share, there won't be enough for me. You know, it's really an existential fear that there is not enough and it's not safe to be alive, which is really fascinating. Because when we open up and allow that energy to flow and allow the abundance of resources that really are here to flow, I think we could really be in a different situation. It's interesting. And again, I know nothing. Our next question that was submitted in advance came from Karanjit. And Karanjit wrote, how do we train ourselves to realize that our actions are karmic, and whatever we do, whether it is what we eat, our activities along the day, or our interactions, how do we ensure our karmic balance before leaving our physical body?
Well, you know, this question is very interesting because it is couched, or it's let's see, how can I say this? this question comes from another culture and another theory or cosmology about human beings that I'm really not familiar with. I mean, I haven't, I am familiar with it in kind of a very surface way, you know, like there used to be that people were afraid of doing Reiki with certain people, other people, because they might take on their karmic debt and so on. And so my question is, what is it that we are doing on the planet as human beings? Like, what's our job? What's our real job? You know, like, okay, I landed here. I was my parents' oldest child, and I have, you know, 4 brothers and sisters. And into that environment, you know, I did a lot of different things. And in the end, did I come to Earth just to be their daughter and to be in this family? Or is there some greater thing that I am here to do? And I believe that as human beings, we have our own, you know, family structure that we need to be involved in, and hopefully think about what we're doing in our family to support that family and support the members of that family to be all that they can be. And then to also choose a path where we do the same thing with our community and, you know, with our global population. And one of the things that I find is that in Reiki, that what happens in Reiki is that one of the first things that happens if you're a first degree student is that you might start wanting to eat meat when you have been a vegetarian all your life. And that's happened with a lot of my students, and vice versa. And sometimes this not eating meat has to do with belief systems about animals and so on. And I believe that Reiki gives us the possibility to do what's best first for us, and then in that we are healthy and having a healthy soul, if you might want to call it that, then we go on to find out what else is healthy for us. And when you ask, how do we ensure our karmic balance before leaving our physical body? I'm not like, when I contemplate my death, I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, was I a good person? And if I go out tomorrow and do a bunch of good deeds or be kind to so many people, that I'll leave my physical body kind of with the scales balanced. Well, if you live your life like that, then it's for me, it's not natural. It's not a conscious change. It's not a change of your consciousness. It's just self reflection and self what's the word? Oh, absorption. You know, that you want to be a certain person when you go out of this world. For me, I find it really interesting to imagine what my past lives might have been because of the life that I have now. And, you know, I mean, it's very entertaining. That's all I will say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that made sense.
Mhm. Next question is from Margot. And Margot said, you can be grateful if you can say in the fall of your life that this life has been the sweetest. There are many people who feel that way, especially those who came from far. It feels like you're ended up in a warm bath, finally, charged with euphoric feeling. The task is to look at your damaged neighbor, to reach out to those who have not won the fortune and are plagued by fear, illness, pain, and loneliness. Thanks, Margot.
Hi, Margot. It's amazing that you got that out of my little paragraph that I wrote. This last year has been the sweetest because it's been the most painful that I can remember for a long time. And that I felt like there were very few choices that I had to make. And my neighbors are no more damaged than I am. My neighbors are I don't know, it just your idea of who I am is not my idea, and maybe someone else who lives with me or hangs out with me a lot might agree with you, but I don't. And I don't reach out to people around me that I feel I'm more holy or more, I don't know, at peace with myself. I just hang out with my friends and have very sweet moments of intimacy, human connection, love, and also with that comes illness, pain, and loneliness. And that's what makes it so sweet. Thank you.
Phyllis, thank you very much for that.
The
next question, actually our final question that was submitted in advance. Those of you who are with us live, you're welcome to add additional questions in the chat if you'd like. We'll definitely have time for at least a couple. And the final question that came in advance is from Joanne Louise, and she wrote, as Reiki is now recognized holistic therapy at St. George's Hospital in London, I believe Fiona Gray, along with many others, are doing something every Reiki practitioner hopes and dreams of, connecting Reiki with medicine. My question is this: as medicine advances and changes so quickly, do you, Phyllis, think that Reiki might advance and change along with it? I'm referring to Western Reiki compared to the original Usui Japanese Reiki, how Mrs. Takata made Japanese Reiki more palatable for her new Western Reiki practitioners.
There are several points that you bring up in this particular question, so I'm going to take them one at a time. I think that your statement about doing something every Reiki practitioner hopes and dreams of, connecting Reiki with medicine, is a statement that is a little bit generalized and sweeping. I don't know really what you imagine this is happening, that this, how this is happening, but this phrase, connecting Reiki with medicine, you know, I've always done from the very moment that I started teaching. I was in a little town in Nelson, British Columbia, and there were lots of times when I was called to the hospital to practice Reiki on someone, and it made a difference in their therapy and in the medicine that they actually received. And the doctors were pretty interested in it. They treated it as though it was another practice, which it is. And they respected it because they were respected as doctors. And when I went in with a friend of mine who didn't respect the medical staff and was quite rude actually to them. And finally, the doctor said to my husband, who was being treated, you choose her or you choose me, but you can't have both. And, you know, he made it very clear that if someone was coming to a doctor, that then you have to be able to respect them. And it is you're in the hospital, you are in their domain, and Reiki becomes a partner can become a partner of medicine. And, you know, at the end of the treatment, which was over a month and a half, this doctor was really astonished at what Reiki did for the wound that he was treating. And I believe that this experience changed the way that this doctor connected and received Reiki as a practice. So Fiona Gray and this program at St. George's is one step further, because the hospital is now training the Reiki practitioners and allowing them to be partners. And I think that that is really great. And it happens a lot of places, and not just in St. George's. So I don't know what changes and advances medicine has. And so I can't answer that question. I don't understand what you're referring to. But the sentence, how Mrs. Takata made Japanese Reiki more palatable for her new Reiki practitioners, is a statement that is a bit provocative for me, because she never changed the practice to make it more palatable for her new Reiki Western practitioners. Her first students in Hawaii were all Japanese for years. And I don't believe that, I believe that her practice that she introduced to us here in the United States was not Western Reiki. Western Reiki for me is a designation that has little to do with her practice. So the original Usui Japanese Reiki, these two sentences about Western Reiki compared to the original Usui Japanese Reiki is only kind of hearsay, and then that she changed the practice to make it more palatable, it just isn't true for me. What did happen was that she did translate the practice so that hopefully her students who were not raised in the Japanese culture would understand the principles of the Japanese culture that lay underneath Reiki. And unfortunately, it was not so successful. So I'm sorry if I've offended you, but this is my thing, that what Fiona Gray and the St. George's Hospital group and so on are doing is a really wonderful program. I just want you to know that I really support it, because I feel like they are working on being partners on the floor, in theory and in practice. And that's something that I believe this group takes very seriously. And I support that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Phyllis, for your response. I'd like to contribute a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Context. One is that in response to the idea of everyone like wanting Reiki in medicine, I think this is a cool opportunity for me to share that I personally love the idea of Reiki as a form of complementary medicine and it being accessible and available in such a way for people. I'm not personally interested in being a Reiki practitioner in a medical context, but have enjoyed over the last several years being part of conversations with people who do feel that calling and feel that it is their work. For me, I feel more called to be an agent in laying the lines for networking. And that's to say that as a global community, we all have a place and a role to play, and each of us have a unique calling and way to show up and contribute in that community. And so just wanted to share how I feel in that. And I also want to say that Fiona Gray, along with many other people, have been doing this work before there was this group that I'm about to tell you about. And also, over the last couple of years, Phyllis and I have had a group that we've called Healing Practice to Professional Practice, Healing Art to Professional Practice. And there's been a group of Reiki practitioners who are part of the Global Reiki Webinar community who are personally called to do this work of Reiki into medical settings. And Fiona's been part of that group along with about 20 or 25 other practitioners. And a process that Phyllis has guided us in is really identifying who we are as a community and what we identify as essential elements of our practice, so that when practitioners of Reiki do go into the medical settings, we are able to clearly express who we are and what it is we're doing, rather than waiting for the bureaucratic systems to define us and our practice and what we do for us. And it's been really fun and fascinating for me to be a witness in that process, as Phyllis has guided the practitioners part of that group in it. And while we don't have too much information, Phyllis and I have discussed that we'd like to return to this conversation with the folks who've been part of it over the last couple of years in 2019, and also put out an invitation to you at home, wherever you are, if you'd like to join this group and be part of it and be part of the next stages in this evolving process, we'll have information in the months ahead about how you can do that. Phyllis, is there anything you want to add or fill in that I may have missed on that?
No.
Okay. So that does sort of lead into talking about other things we're doing, but I want to check. There are some new things in the chat if there are other questions. They all like comments to me. Phyllis, would you like to read any of them or go into talking about this next year? I also want to say out loud, I've been typing in the chat, but thank you to all of you who have clicked that donation link and sent Global Reiki Webinars a monetary gift over the last hour. We really appreciate it and appreciate you. And we appreciate everyone who's here with us in time and space, sharing this experience of community.
I wanted to comment with you, sort of in response to what you said, Rachel, about you're happy to have Reiki be a complementary resource for people, and that's true. That's one sort of place that Reiki could be, is to complement medicine. But I believe that there is also another place, which is that not just Reiki, but there are other healing modalities that have the possibility to be joined in a healthcare plan for someone who, whatever they're dealing with, and decide for themselves whether or not they only do allopathic medicine or they only do acupuncture or they do a combination. And that's one of the things that this word partnership really brings up for me a lot, is that it can be done instead of. So there are people that I know that have had cancer that have listened to what the doctors have prescribed, have tried it. They just feel like it's not for them. And they go totally to Reiki and maybe Chinese herbs. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. But they at least have an opportunity to choose. And this is the part that I'm really gung-ho about, that I really want to have, that if somebody wants to step into the hospital and be able to have daily Reiki treatments while in the hospital, there's somebody who will be able to do that. And, you know, in my case, after all these years of living with cancer, I I made an agreement with my mother. She said 100% medicine and 100% Reiki. And that fit really well with me. And the last 2 months, I've had really some major medical issues come up, and a lot of side effects that have been like fatigue and dizziness and sort of confusion. And, you know, I finally got home where I could have 4 or 5 Reiki treatments a week, hands-on, in November. And since then, every week, I've gained this big step of stability inside myself. And, you know, I think to myself, how could somebody else not have this opportunity to choose? And it really is so exciting for me to be able to do that. Yeah. So that's my 2 bits. And there's a question from
Bronco
that I don't really understand. So I tried to go to the leading paragraph because I thought maybe I didn't really understand what I wrote, but of course, when I went to the paragraph, it led me right into the show. So, can you read that part?
Yeah, so Bronco earlier in the chat, and Bronco, thank you for reminding us to scroll down and re-find your question. Bronco wrote, in the intro email about this webinar, there is a sentence that Phyllis wrote, okay, I'm ready. It seems to me that within a lot of people, to be ready or not to be ready is a concept that often leads to some kind of disappointment. How do you discern between the concept or idea that you are ready and being in a state of conscious readiness?
Right, but what was the context that I wrote, okay, I'm ready in?
It was, so in your intro paragraph, it was, I'm going to share what I recall from when I read it, the times that I did, is you dove in quickly to talking about death. You know, so looking forward, what happens here? And then it went to, let's have the conversation. I'm ready. The conversation. And so to me, it felt like there's a state of readiness that you felt when writing those words and thinking about this moment, this conversation that we're all having now, that there was a sense of readiness, a sense of resolve. And I don't know exactly what Bronco means. And Bronco, you're here with us live. You can let us know if you have words to describe what you mean. I think he's talking about, I can relate to my own experience. I've had times where there might be a conversation that I really want to have or a topic that I really want to explore, but feel that within me, I'm not quite ready. My feelings and my thoughts and my energy are maybe all over the place, and there's a sense of not readiness. And then sometimes I might have a moment of, here's my readiness to move forward and talk about this thing. Bronco, is that right? Ready as in how to be ready as in how to be ready for what life has ahead of us and being ready for what the future holds.
Yeah. Okay, Bronco, I hope you understand or are clear about my comment. And I don't speak for everyone. I only speak for myself. So now what I would like to do is to speak about something that I'm going to be presenting in January. You will get a link to a registration form, and you can also as well register for it in the usual way through Global Reiki Webinars. Okay.
Yeah. So, and you'll get that if you're on the Global Reiki Webinars email list or on Phyllis's Office of the Grand Master email list, this will be sent out through both of those avenues, and we'll also post in the Global Reiki Webinar Facebook group.
So in one of the questions earlier, somebody spoke about Hawayo Takata and her version of Reiki that I learned. And in my trying to reconcile what I was taught and a lot of the other stories and things that have come out of not just Japan, but, out of the internet somewhere or out of, outer space. It's been very important for me when I go to Japan to explore this, in some kind of depth. And one of the great supporters that I've had has been Justin Stein, who has been a great resource for me and researcher. So how can I explain this? So anyway, when I went to Japan last year in 2017, I spent 3 months there. And at the very beginning of this time, I was just delivering my garbage to the garbage depot, which was not at my house, and going for a little walk in my neighborhood. And it was one of these magical, amazing moments when I happened to stop and talk to this man who was trying to learn English. He's Japanese. And I never saw him again, which was a little too bad for me. And this man came with his young son along the same road and said, "Oh, I know you." And I said, "Really? I don't think so." And he said, "Yes, you're Phyllis Furumoto. I met you about, I don't know, I think it was 10 years before in near Toronto, Canada, when I did an event." And I mean, we hit it off and had lots of things to talk about. And it turns out that he is a scholar, and he's just now finishing his PhD study, his thesis on talking about shiatsu, which is his profession and his practice, and the way that it was taught through the masters, like Reiki has been taught through the masters by a Japanese system called Shuhari. And each stage of this teaching is very clear and has within it the foundation of Japanese principles that aren't very evident in the teaching. So his name is Peter Savanik, and then a man who has become a dear friend of mine, Yakuten Inamoto-san, and I and Justin and myself had wonderful conversations about Hawayo Takata and how she translated the system and the practice from the Japanese practice to the practice that I learned. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning, and we are all learning. And we're all very excited about this conversation. So we're going to offer 3 2-hour sessions on this. One at the end of January, and then for 2 weeks each time. And unfortunately, for the Europeans, it will be really in your middle of the night because they're in Japan and I'm in the United States. So in order to set the time, I think it's 6 o'clock Saturday night, my time, here in the States. And then it'll be 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock in Japan during that time. So it's good for the Far East and the Americas, but it's not so great for Europeans. What we'd like to do is to offer this for $110 for the 3 sessions, and we'd like for you to register for all the 3 sessions and pay for all 3 sessions at the same time. The $10 will go toward technical work. We're going to not use this Webinar Jam software platform. We're going to use Zoom so that you can actually talk to us. So we're going to have it in a format where you'll be seen on the screen with everyone else, and you'll be able to talk real time. So it's not you have to think of questions beforehand. It's going to be a response discussion. So that'll be really exciting, very interesting. Rachel has very willingly and thank goodness said that she would be our technician. So I'm very excited about that. And we're putting this out in this way, and if we see that there is more time needed or wanted by groups, then we can, continue this. But this is our first offering. So I'm very excited by this. I know I'm going to learn a lot, and I really want to say that this is something that I feel like everybody can find something new in considering the practices of Reiki today and how they relate to Japan as a culture. So thank you. Well, that's my offering. Rachel?
Yeah, and another opportunity to come together in community this coming year is the Global Reiki Webinar in-person gathering that this year will be happening in Europe. And so I think for a lot of us in this greater global Reiki community, there's this dream to come together and practice in person and to actually hug each other and share in Reiki and get to know each other more intimately and really build this global network. That it's a dream, and that to actually come together and do that would be the realizing of a dream. And the last couple of years, Phyllis and I have done a gathering here in the United States at a retreat center close to where I live in Michigan, and it's been very lovely and sweet, and we've made good friends doing it, but they've also been relatively small gatherings. In the first year, it was bigger, and a lot of that was because those of you who felt really called to come and be with us, many of you flew from Europe to the United States for this short 3-day event. And, so Phyllis put out a dream that maybe we go to Europe this year and do it. And it's going to be June 6th through 9th. That's a Thursday through a Sunday this summer, 2019, at the Gaunt's house. Phyllis, do you want to say anything else about the location?
Gaunt's house is located in the south coast, on the south coast of Dorset, which is a county in England, and it's relatively close to some of the sites if you want to spend more time in England, like Stonehenge and is north of there. So there's well, England is wonderful anyway, and so we're very excited to be there. That's really nice, and um, the setup of Gaunt's house is really interesting because it totally fits our philosophy and our belief system about organization, and so we feel really supported by them, and hopefully they will feel supported by us. So yeah.
So, and we also have a team forming around, taking care of everyone who is called to join us for this event. On the chat right now, I see Ursula Frauchiger, our friend in Switzerland, who is a leader in her local Reiki community, a master teacher, and has been with us in person the last 2 years when we've gathered here in the States. And she's going to be helping us with organizing and communicating with you when you register, and any questions that you have, and you'll get to meet her and hug her. And we also have Fiona Gray, who's with us on the webinar now, who's begun to help us with promoting and also supporting with communication in Europe. And we're really grateful to both of them for stepping up and being part of it. And we're looking forward to this team morphing and growing, and just trusting that there's going to be a lot of ease and grace in just realizing this dream for us too. And like in another realm of realizing dreams, one of my dreams is to travel, and I've actually never been to the European continent. And I also have this dream to travel and have Reiki be part of my work and part of what moves me. And so this event happening is really a big realization of a personal dream for me. And I really want to thank Phyllis and Ursula for being so firm in holding this dream as a possibility, because it's allowing me to trust and move in the process. So thank you both, and thank you everyone who's going to be there with us to realize it together. We also want to say that the Gaunt's house, I've looked at many pictures, and it's like a big castle, and there are many different rooms where people can stay, but there are also grounds to walk around and explore, and there's a camping area. So if you love to camp, it'll be summer or close to summer when we gather in person, and would like to camp, that will be an option as well. Is there anything else you want to say, Phyllis?
Well, just reading the thing here, the chat. I wanted to also acknowledge Bill Mitchell, who is our on-site coordinator person, and there'll be lots more people joining us from the UK, so I'm very happy about that. And Renata asked about being a European. How could she join the series? This is back to the Peter Yakuten and Phyllis series of webinars. And unfortunately, I haven't come up with a name, so that's why it's sort of amorphous. I better get going soon. But anyway, for the Europeans, you'll be able to sign up, pay, and then you will receive, obviously, the recording that you can watch the next day. And then if you have questions, you can, do that through the email. And hopefully we'll, as it's a series of 3 over 6 weeks, hopefully by the 3rd week, we'll be able to have you be really a participant. So thank you.
Thank you. And similar to the Peter Yakuten-san and Phyllis program, the in-person gathering in England will have registration open very soon. And if you are on the Global Reiki Webinars email listserv, you will receive that, as well as in the Global Reiki Webinars Facebook group. And if you're not part of either of those, you're just watching this on YouTube and would like information about that event or either event, you are always welcome to email me at reikiwebinars@gmail.com. Again, that's just reikiwebinars@gmail.com. Oh, should we close with some Reiki?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So thanks again for being with us and devoting this 90 minutes of your life to this conversation. As we close, let's share in Reiki. You can give yourself Reiki as we did in the beginning, or if it's within your practice to send distance Reiki. I invite you to send distance Reiki to our collective highest purpose as a global Reiki community. This always feels so good. So you're welcome to continue with the Reiki as long as you like. And until next time, when we're together again in this way, we wish you peace, love, and Reiki. Phyllis, do you want to say goodbye?
Bye-bye. I was typing on the chat. So.
Yeah.